Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us yet again for another live stream hosted by Epicenter-NYC. We are a newsletter launched to get New Yorkers through the pandemic. Of course, we have become so much more than that. As many of you who've been joining us on this journey are aware, a few months ago, we pivoted our efforts from mostly the newsletter, the website, some occasional stories, and we've really gone all in on helping New Yorkers get booked for their vaccines. I'm really proud that as of this live stream, we have helped book about 5,000 New Yorkers. About 8,000 folks have turned to us for help. That remaining 3,000 balance is, folks who got mostly folks who were able to get vaccines on their own. And indeed, more people are able to get vaccines on their own. So whereas the last few months, Epicenter and a team of volunteers, more than 100 of us, have been working in various ways, booking people directly, doing outreach, asking people, if they needed transportation, if they needed, family members book, like just really pretty intense efforts on our part, which is how we helped thousands and thousands of you get your vaccines. Over the last few weeks, we've just seen a dramatic shift in what the needs around vaccines are. And so whereas previous live streams that we've been hosting have really focused on how to book a vaccine, and last week we did one in Spanish, which I'm also really proud of, that we're able to get the word out in multiple languages. I think that's been a part of our success as well. This week we're pivoting to how you can help New York City get vaccinated too. And you might wonder what we mean by that, right? How can you do this and what is your role in it? But we know that there is still ways to go until we have achieved both herd immunity in terms of what vaccines can help the population get to, as well as the obstacles that many New Yorkers and their families in Long Island, New Jersey, I always like to say that we've also helped a stray Kansan or two, because certainly people ask about their family members and we'll help them. Certainly, the obstacles that people face in order to get their vaccine still remain many. And so we're just at a stage, because vaccines are more plentiful, because the appointments are not as hard to get, our hope is that many of you out there can join us in that effort. And so we have previous videos on how to book the vaccine, which we're happy to share with you. And we can maybe do that in the chat here, but also they are on all of our social channels across Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube on how to go ahead and book. Today, we really do want to pivot to your role in this and how we can all work together to help our neighbors who might be nervous about getting vaccinated, who might have certain obstacles, how we can remove those obstacles for them. We also want to help those of you watching learn how to talk to your friends, your family, and neighbors about vaccines and how they can go about getting them. And I think tone is really key here. So we have some special guests joining us. These are folks on without whom the Epicenter vaccine effort would not be possible. So I'm going to start with Diana Chiaveta, who is one of our key volunteers. Hi, Diana. I think you're muted.
Sorry.
Okay.
Hello, Mitra.
How are you, Diana?
Good. Thank you for having me. I am Diana, a proud New Yorker who is desperate for community and connection after 12 months of living a very quiet, quarantined life in Midtown.
Oh, wow. I was about to ask what your New York story is, Diana. So how'd you end up in New York? Before we ask you about vaccines, tell us a little about how you ended up in Midtown.
Sure. I was born here to my parents, who were city dwellers for many years, but I was raised in the suburbs, just north of the city. And I found my way back to New York after college, and I've been in Midtown now for 6 years. So it's been a very different 2020 into 2021, but still proud and happy here nonetheless.
And how did you hear about, I actually don't even know the answer to this. How did you get involved in Epicenter, and how did you start booking vaccine appointments?
Sure. I found Epicenter on, drum roll please, Twitter. I joined a volunteer Zoom call and started booking appointments right away.
So you were were you one of the early ones?
I want to say early March, back when we were still on Google spreadsheet.
Got it. Okay, so I most know you from the last few weeks where we have been pivoting some of our efforts. I just wondered, before we kind of dive into what you're working on right now and how that might help some of the folks who are out there, can you tell me what the last few weeks in sort of the vaccine landscape have looked like? So you started in early March. What can you compare that to where we're at now?
Sure. Yes, I remember early March when eligibility was not opened up to all groups, and it was in the phased approach. So one of the challenges I remember facing was just identifying eligible groups, and people in our intake forms weren't sure if they were eligible. So that was the preliminary conversation in a lot of those participants. And then since then, we've seen big changes in eligibility and age groups and participant groups opening up, which of course has been wonderful. And then we move to the next step of how can we get that participant their vaccine at the closest site to them, the least amount of transit transfers, walking distance, or just accommodating their needs, whether it be walking distance or on the lunch break of a work shift, or before or after a work shift, booking families appointments at the same times, and groups of friends that will be traveling together. That was like the bulk of the March into April. And then I think today, in today's landscape, which has changed even from 1 week ago, intake has dwindled. I think a ton of New Yorkers, thankfully, that wanted appointments have gotten appointments. And the next chapter of our story might be continued outreach and just finding groups that maybe don't know how easy it is to get an appointment now, don't know that it's free and it doesn't require insurance. And just that next step is what we're ready for.
I think that's a really good transition to what you're working on now for Epicenter, which has been really invaluable in exactly what you just said. Before we dive into that, I just wanted to remind anyone who's watching or listening that you can leave questions or comments in each of the social channels that you're watching this in, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Just leave a comment or hit reply, and we can pick that right up. So if you have a question, please do let us know. And I should note that we will have a medical expert on with us later. And while I have lots of questions, we'd love to hear yours as well. So Diana, what are you working on right now that kind of furthers what you're describing in terms of making this easier on the people who need their vaccine?
Good question. So Epicenter has partnered with Community Healthcare Network. I'll use the acronym CHN. In a broader sense, CHN is a group of health centers across New York that provide judgment-free, high-quality healthcare without regard to race, religion, orientation, gender identity, immigration status, or ability to pay. Within the past month, CHN has been able to open and operate 4 New York City vaccination sites in Jamaica, Queens, East New York, Brooklyn, Harlem, and Washington Heights. And the 4 locations are noted on this map. Epicenter has partnered with another organization, Stop the Spread, to gain access to CHN's appointment booking system in a unique partnership. CHN and Stop the Spread has allotted 160 appointments per week to Epicenter participants. This has created an incredibly easy channel for families, friends, groups of employees, and coworkers to be booked together at the same site at the same time. And if any of the 160 appointments go unbooked through Epicenter participants, those appointments actually get released into the Vax4NYC booking system at the 24-hour mark, where any eligible member of the general public can book.
And tell me a little bit about how you've been, how has this introduction of having many appointments, right? So I'm just remembering the days where it would be like a scramble and we would be like, you got to take what you can get, right? So tell me how this changes what might have been not just Epicenter's efforts around booking vaccines, but really like the whole city was working on the take whatever you can get model.
Right. In those earlier days, we were sending people or offering people appointments that might have been an hour away by train or bus, and they were taking them because they wanted it. They were eligible and they wanted it. But this next chapter, I think, is bringing vaccination sites to communities so you don't have to send them on a long transit journey. So I think by CHN identifying 4 neighborhoods that, a site was needed in, it was almost the other sites and the larger state-run sites were actually very far from these 4 sites. So by providing access to community, you're just increasing, the chances that we're going to get through this pandemic as the city.
Yeah, that makes sense. You have some interesting anecdotes on how people are really taking this idea of going together to the vaccine site as like, I don't want to say it's like a party, but there seems to be some desire for people to not be alone, right? When they're going. Can you just talk a little bit about why that is, what that means, and then also what can people learn from that as they're trying to encourage, their friends or family and other folks to go ahead and get their vaccines?
Definitely. I think it's been a year where we've been isolated and, large gatherings haven't happened. And maybe getting a vaccine appointment with a friend or a family member is, symbolic and emotional. And we have heard from, we'll reach out to someone on our Epicenter participant list and say, hey, we have an availability to book you at this CHN site, and appointments are very flexible here. I'm not offering you one slot. I'm offering you 4 days a week of 4-hour chunks of time. So I've reached out to Epicenter participants who come back and say, oh, can I bring my family with me? And I get to say yes, and it's easy as pie. Whereas trying to book, 3 or 4 concurrent appointments using the state or city run websites are very challenging.
Yeah.
So we've seen, families respond well to this. We've seen coworkers respond well to this. Last week was our first successful week of the CHN partnership. And I actually, one of the 4 sites, we didn't book a lot of appointments at, just from our Epicenter participants. So I did a quick Google search of the neighborhood and started calling restaurants. And I just called a few restaurants. And if someone picked up and were willing to listen, I left my phone number and said, listen, no pressure, but if any of your employees are interested, we can help. And that night I got a text message and phone call. And since that day, I've been able to book almost 8 employees at the same restaurant. Wow. And it's almost like, my phone number is just, going around in a group text or just, it couldn't be closer to the site if they tried, it is walking distance. So that was an incredible success story that, could be a model that could be applied to other sites and also to other, if other volunteers are interested in doing something like that. And just this accessibility of not only a local, a local site, but a site that can accommodate you in a range of hours where maybe some of the other sites don't feel that way.
Yeah. I think that's really, like, my key takeaways from what you're saying is that, one, it's nearby, right? So we're able to solve for, you got to travel to another borough or, across 3 bus lines. So I think that the takeaways for folks who are either organizing their own, there's still a lot of pop-ups going on. There's still a lot of houses of worship that might organize vaccine drives. So it sounds like the closer, the better. The more open the scheduling, like I have a window, you can book at any time in this window. So giving people kind of agency and options there. I love the idea of calling restaurants around vaccine sites. And I think that's something that not just a volunteer can do, but for people who've looked at the list of city sites, state sites, pharmacies, like, we all know them because we're volunteering, but other people, like other normal people, probably don't know them. But if you are in that camp where you're knowing where vaccines are offered, to call the places around them. And then the last thing you said, which is great, is just going with someone for what will be a major life event that people seem to remember, might get more people, through the doors of the site. That's awesome. If we could show that map one more time before we bring on Vivian Tam, our other volunteer extraordinaire, that would be great. Okay, so these are the 4 sites: South Jamaica, East New York, Uptown, and further uptown. Or is it? They're both uptown in Manhattan, right?
Yeah.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth underscoring what you started out. These are sites that seem not fussy on immigration, not fussy meaning you really should not, nobody should be fussy on immigration status or whether you're insured or not. But we know anecdotally that has been a hurdle for some people. And these sites really pride themselves on making it easy for the individuals who need to get vaccinated. I think that's really key. All right, we can bring Vivian on. Diana, did you have something else you wanted to say?
Oh, just that my other key takeaway is that their sites are open 2 weeknights a week from 5:30 to 9:30, which is also a window where a lot of people jump at the opportunity because it's outside of the typical working hours, and it fits in with schedules a lot more than others. So yep, I'll end on that note, and thank you for having me.
Of course. Thanks, Diana. You can stay with us, I think, while Vivian, I think you actually, if I'm not mistaken, you might have a similar New York story. Were you born and raised here too?
Yes, also born and raised in Brooklyn. So I've been here all my life, just left for a little bit to go to college in Massachusetts, but I'm back now and finding a lot of community with Epicenter, like Diana mentioned. So it's been...
And Vivian, I know you've been with us a while because you have been key to our Chinese language effort. It's Chinese language for sure, but I do feel like with the Asian community writ large, you have been such a go-to person navigating. If you don't speak the language, it almost feels like you'll learn it or you'll find somebody who does. So I want to thank you for that because it's been a real game changer. And I feel like, there was just a press conference yesterday where some city officials are starting to kind of catch up to the lack of language access. I just wondered if you wanted to talk a little bit about that. I actually don't know your Epicenter story. How did you end up coming to us? And then how does language fit into that?
Right. So I think I actually came to Epicenter through a language route. I saw the flyers and I wanted to share it around with my community. But I think at the time they were only available in English and Spanish. And then the actual Epicenter sign-up link was also in English. So I think for a lot of Chinese-speaking community members, that was also a barrier. So I think I was just trying to find a way to solve a problem. And then I think joining Epicenter and being able to do some translation work and connect with community members who are comfortable speaking Chinese, and that's the way they find their way to a vaccine. That was really important to me.
And how I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked Diana on sort of how it started and how it's going. Like what have the last few days been like in sort of the vaccine landscape that you run?
Yeah, I totally echo what Diana shared earlier. I think even end of March, we were seeing so many entries in our Airtable, our Google Sheets. There were hundreds of people who were still struggling to find appointments. But then this past week, I think we've definitely seen intake slow a little bit, and that is the same across the Chinese intake form as well. I think it's a little bit different because our phone numbers have also been circulated widely among community members. So things do come in sporadically, but then when one person in the family gets it, sometimes you'll get a list. So it really depends day to day, but I definitely do see intake slowing a little bit. And I think that's something all volunteers are seeing this past week.
I do think that phone number piece is really important. So anyone who's out there trying to book somebody else a vaccine, you sort of become this connection, not just for that person, but for everybody else that person will then go say, well, this person helped me get it. And in some cases, it's literally dozens, right? It's not just like a spouse or immediate family. It ends up being quite extensive. So I know, Vivian, you work with your sister on some of this, who cannot be with us tonight, but she is, like you said, she's the queen of the Asian auntie scene. And I just wondered if you could, like, what's her trick around, getting people to agree to the vaccine? Like, I don't know if she's talked to you about that. And then B, like, why and what is it that she's doing that that seems to connect with them, and even more that they're trusting her with this?
Oh, I love what you said, the queen of connecting with Asian aunties. That's definitely her. I mean, to be totally fair, her Chinese language ability is much better than mine. So she's a faster texter. That gets her to more people, obviously. But I think she also is really good at answering questions for people. And I think one good example, a few weeks ago, we had one family member sign up to get her 91-year-old grandmother a vaccine. And then after that, well, there were a few hiccups. We were trying to book through the city website. So we were trying to get several family members at a similar time. The grandma was Saturday, everyone else was Sunday. So naturally, they thought all the appointments were for Sunday. So I think it was at 9 in the morning. And then we were checking in at 4 p.m., seeing how they were doing. And then we realized that they forgot about the appointment. So we told them, just go now, like they'll let you in. As long as you have the appointment for today, you'll be able to get it. And so we were able to get grandma vaccinated. And then slowly the rest of the family got theirs. They referred to their family friends in a different borough. We also got them signed up. So definitely word of mouth. And I think seeing other community members offer help and getting through it efficiently is definitely reassuring, especially to those who might feel a little hesitant or are in the wait and see camp for now.
And a few weeks ago, Vivian, you were on, and you've written for Epicenter about this as well, about sort of the fears among Asian seniors to get vaccinated. We're in a climate of hate right now, and I think you picked up on that hesitancy long before I saw articles about it, long before it was the subject, as I said, of press conferences. So I just wondered, is the pulse on the ground still the same as you've been outlining? Does it feel like it's getting better? Does it feel like this is being taken more seriously?
Yeah, I think ever since more local pharmacies and family doctors have opened up, that's definitely been helpful. People don't feel like they have to travel like via 3 trains, a bus somewhere on the edge of town, knowing that they can have flexibility with more times, people that they trust, institutions that they trust. I think that has definitely helped. I do think that there's been more media attention and just a general awareness among the overall population about what these concerns are. And I think I've also heard that people are getting great translation services at these vaccination centers. So I think having positive experiences definitely helps, and hoping to continue to see that.
That's great to hear. And Diana, I don't know if you have thoughts on that, because you have been able to book people together, and whether you're connecting that as an opportunity as well for that community.
Yes, I remember booking a man, and then a few days later booking his wife, and she ended up sharing with me that her husband didn't go to the appointment, but he wants to go with her. So that could have been a situation where there was hesitancy to go alone, and the unknown of that experience. But in booking them together, I'm sure there's safety in numbers, and that felt better for them as a family. And I'm always humbled when people share vulnerable stories like that with me, because I'm a stranger. They don't have to tell me these things, but in doing so, we can really find a solution that feels good, it feels right. What Mitra says, keep it easy, and yeah.
Great. That's great. So I'm going to ask you, most of the people who come to us want a vaccine, so we don't deal with hesitancy as much. However, I'm just wondering if you've had conversations or can reflect on people who might be choosy on what vaccine to get or scared. And do you have a script on how you deal with that? What would you say to those people? And Diana, I guess you could take that one first, and then we'll go to Vivian.
Sure. Right. Like, by the time we connect with them, they have already given Epicenter their intake form. But I think by keeping a friendly tone and being as accommodating as possible, and even just Google mapping how far their address is from the site, and trying to find something as close as possible, takes out a step that could prevent them from going. So I just stay humble when in communication, and that whatever they're willing to share or chat about, I'm there with 2 ears. And then now that we have this CHN connection, I have been able to, mention, if anyone in your network is interested, these sites are very flexible, that kind of thing.
Thanks. Vivian, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. When they usually come to us, I think there's an understanding that they're ready to get the vaccine. Some people might not be able to make it as early as you want them to get the vaccine. So I take a step back. I remember it's not about me. It's about getting people to be comfortable and getting the vaccine on their own terms. So if they don't respond to me, I give it a few days, I follow up. If they say that they're canceling because they want a different vaccine, I say, okay, I step back a bit, I get back to them. I don't try to be pushy at all, because I think it's really important to meet them where they're at, and realize that just because it's not easy doesn't mean it's not possible to get people vaccinated. And that if we're really trying to meet people where they're at, we can't give up on someone who maybe at one moment in time is hesitant, waiting. They might be open in a few more days. So I try to see that as an opportunity and not like a dead end.
That's such great advice. And Before I ask you the last question, I think one area that we could also be helpful on is being more transparent about the vaccine that's offered. And I think it's worth noting that the one at Community Healthcare Network is Pfizer, which is good for folks over the age of 16, which also makes it kind of easier for families who might have teenage children and so forth. So that is Pfizer. We should have told you that. I violated my own rule on when possible, let people know what vaccine they're getting, because that certainly helps for planning and so forth. So my last question to you both is, if you could wave a wand and change anything, do anything, just pretend Mayor de Blasio and Governor Cuomo and President Biden are listening to you, what would you do? Diana, you're nodding, so it feels like you have an answer ready, and then we'll go to Vivian to close this out.
Sure. I would make vaccine sites at places that people are already going to on a daily basis. And I know the challenges that come from this, but just, these pop-ups have shown us that you can do vaccine distribution in smaller sites or in temporary sites, and near a grocery store that someone's already going to once a week, or near a place of worship that someone is scheduled to be at every week. It's sometimes I say to myself, it shouldn't be this hard. Like, I'm Google mapping and I'm hitting refresh on the sites, and I'm just like, it shouldn't be this hard. It should have been accessible, from day one. So I wish I had that magic. I wish you had that magic wand and I could give my suggestions, but it would just be, accessibility.
Great. Vivian?
I agree. Accessibility via language, via transit, walk-ins. I definitely do see an impact with the over 50 walk-ins now, and I'm hoping that they expand that to everyone soon. It's getting warmer. People are outside. People are out and about. So put vaccine pop-ups in the community park, all over the place. I feel like if you can go get groceries, if you can go outside, you should be able to have a vaccine within a block or two away. I think that will really make it easier for people who might not be able to take the train or go farther away. So.
Thank you. I feel like I told you guys to tell me one thing, and you gave our politicians a few great things to think about. I think if I had to do one thing, it would be to almost like take what you all said and put it on flyers outside where there are vaccines available. And I would have big words that say vaccines available, free, 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 in big, bold words, because people still seem to think you might have to pay. I think then I would say, don't need insurance, don't need immigration status. And then I would say whatever vaccine it is, as I just said, Pfizer or Moderna, right? Be very explicit in what it is, what the age group is. And I think that signage in multiple language, thank you, Vivian, Tam, would really go a long way on just like having people associate vaccine, it's free, you don't have to be insured, you don't need immigration stuff. Like, there's a journey you're taking people on in like a super targeted way that has felt a little bit bumpy till now. So that's my wave the wand and what I would want. I promised a medical expert is with us, so I'm going to let Vivian and Diana go, and Dr. Layla Farhat, who's a family practitioner in Brooklyn, is with us tonight. Oh, hi, Dr. Farhat. I think you're on mute.
Yes. Okay. Hi.
Oh, so good to have you. Ramadan Mubarak. How are you?
Thank you. I'm so happy to see everybody, and the great job that your center has been doing, really.
Oh, thank you. You know, we came in contact with you. I know the backstory because we started to hear from your patients, and we said, who is this great doctor because as you know, people trust their doctor more than they're going to trust Epicenter. They've never, many of them had never heard of us before. So, So tell me, I think it's worth rewinding a little bit to those days of how we encountered you. your patients were saying what? We can't get a vaccine. Tell us where to go for help. Tell me what that was like.
Yeah, the problem is like every time we want to give a patient vaccine, we don't have it in the office. And this is a big problem for medical doctors to have COVID vaccine. And we've been fighting for it for a while, and still until now, my office doesn't have the vaccine. So the things is like we face with some people, they are elderly. They don't know how to fill up the Google forms and make an appointment and these type of things. So they ask us for help. And then, when we get to know the epicenter, so I had somebody from my office always fill up the form for them, and it was great, really experience, because we get the appointment right away in 1 day or maximum 2 days. So it was really very helpful for them. Yes.
Well, you've been helpful for us, because I think the more doctors we have in our community, the better, because we're starting to get questions. Of course, as vaccines become more available, it's great, but it also means that the population that's been hesitating might either get them, or they have they have questions that I don't feel equipped to answer. So this
Epicenter never advertised their center to the medical doctors in the area.
Well, so we're not we were a newsletter, so we're really not even a physical center, right? So it was we were born out of saying, oh, we'll tell you where to get help. Good. And we became the helpers, which is great. I'm very proud of that.
You did very good job. Very good job. It's excellent, yeah.
But I think you're right. Now we actually, thanks to people we have a network of doctors who. So my question is, right now we're in a really interesting moment where the people who want a vaccine, it's feeling like it's easier for them. But there's a big part of the population that either finds it hard or they don't want the vaccine. And I'm wondering what you say. I don't know if you have patients who've said, Dr. Farhat, I don't trust it. I don't feel comfortable. What is your conversation there?
At the beginning of the vaccine, when the vaccine started to come out, a lot of people, they didn't want to take it. But then day after day, we hear these people, like my neighbor died, my friend died, my grandma died. There's so many deaths, We start seeing people, they started to ask for the vaccine. And every day they say, when are you going to have the vaccine in your office? Every day I have the same question. And they say, okay, soon. And then when I know about your center, we start using it. And it did help me a lot until now. Then after that, still until now, there is a couple of patients, they are hesitating really to take it. And they will tell you, I don't trust it. I'm scared. I'm afraid. I'm home. I don't need it. So we still have this negative attitude too. But I can see that a lot of people now, yes, they want the vaccine. And this is very good compared to the beginning.
And what is the conversation? Do you convince people to get it?
If I recommend to get it? Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And just tell, what's the language that you're using with them?
I have an advantage because I can cover 3 communities. I speak Spanish. I have a lot of Spanish patients. I have Arabic patients too, and wherever other mixed languages. So it does help me a lot to cover different communities. So
I think we found very similar that if it wasn't for our Spanish, Chinese, Bangla speaking volunteers, I don't think we would have made nearly the headway that we have. And I think that's a really important point. What about this moment around Moderna versus Pfizer, and then of course the pause with J&J? Do you think that people are feeling skeptical? Do you think that we're waiting till Friday for J&J, so we don't have I don't know anything more, but I'm just wondering what you make of this.
We're still waiting actually for Johnson & Johnson, but what I see from the patients, when it comes to Moderna and Pfizer, let's forget about Johnson a little bit, they have their information mixed up, and depend which friend has what experience had with the vaccine, they follow this friend and the social media too. Some people say, oh, I'm not going to take Pfizer. My friend had fever and had bad reaction and almost died. And there's other patients that say the same thing about Moderna. So and when I tell them there's no difference between Moderna and Pfizer, and that's the true, actually, they are done in the same technology, then they are saying, okay, no problem. So they change their mind when you explain and then you educate the people. But with Johnson now, everybody is scared, and I don't know how we're gonna really overpass the fear that the people will have.
Yeah. Johnson & Johnson was a big blow to us because we helped so many restaurant workers and people who just couldn't do 2 doses, like, just because of their schedules.
That's true. People they were happy to have like only 1 dose.
That's right.
It's really sad. I was very sad when I heard about it. Yeah, we were very excited. Just 1 shot and go.
Well, so now I think some of the programs that we're doing, like the Roar bus, which is the restaurant workers bus. So here's the cards that they show you, and then the homebound program that was for senior citizens or disabled people who can't make it to a vaccine site. I believe they're shifting to Moderna, and they're trying to get the word out there, and they're just going to try to make it easy to get the second dose. It's hard for me to hypothetically ask you what you would tell your patients about J&J until we know what the CDC is going to say on Friday. But have you thought about that conversation next week?
I didn't think about it yet, but I really am going to be very not really happy to say things I'm not sure about it, because it's really, I have a fear from it. Yeah. So we have really to be convinced like 100%. Before we start promoting the vaccine again.
Yeah. I appreciate that, because you're a female doctor. And so I feel like I've been seeing a lot of male doctors on TV saying, it's fine. And I'm like.
With Johnson, because it's clot and it's female.
Yeah.
So, unless we see it's only clots with certain like age and certain interval of age, and then we can eliminate this interval. Like you can.
I think that's a good point, right?
If this is the case, then maybe it's different. So we'll see.
So you're saying if it's within a certain age, let's say women ages 18 to 48, and those are the ones that don't get the vaccine, everyone else has been proven safe, you would feel comfortable?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay. And have you have gotten the vaccine, of course, as a doctor?
Yes, at the beginning.
Which one did you?
Some doctors still, they refuse to get the vaccine, though.
So this is another interesting point. So we've heard this also from our volunteers as well as people we've helped. In the healthcare setting, there's many folks who have not gotten the vaccine, and also at vaccine sites themselves, security guards, people registering you, managing the lines. People might make conversation and they'll say, we asked, what vaccine did you get? And they'll say, we didn't get the vaccine yet. So this is another kind of divide. What should that should you leave those people alone? Should you say, well, you need to get it?
When they start asking for the vaccine, if you have to travel, if you have to go to college, if you have to do certain things, and they're not going to take you until you have the vaccine, then they will be obligated to have it.
Yeah.
But at this time, they force anyone to have it.
Yeah. And one other area that I hope that we get into in weeks to come has been the uneven nature of vaccine distribution across the world. And because you yourself talked about speaking 3 languages, you've lived all over the world. Are you comparing the experience in the US to some of the other places you call home? Or, I wonder if it's a reminder also, we're so lucky to be having this conversation instead of.
Yeah, because the good things in Brooklyn, we have people from all over the world. So everyone has his own experience from your own country of origin and from the country here. So actually, like going back to my country, Lebanon, where I am from, the distribution is very unfair and they have very limited quantity of vaccine. But compared to here, no, we are doing much, much better job. Now you go to other countries, Morocco, Egypt, Algeria, all of these countries, they don't have enough number of vaccine too. So I don't think the privilege of having the vaccine here is much more than other countries. They don't have this privilege. And even though we're still denying to get the vaccine. And this is the sad part of it.
So this is our flyer that was in multiple languages to kind of your point about, I really feel very strongly you can't cover Queens or Brooklyn without talking about these issues of the world, right? We come from all over. And I think for some of us, until our families are safe, it's really hard for us to feel kind of at ease. So I appreciate that perspective on it. Can I ask Dr. Farhat, how are you keeping up with COVID news? What are you reading every day? What should we be encouraging as far as what's a good scientific news habit, if you will.
I mean, every day we watch Good Morning America. That's 100%. That they invite the CDC doctor, and if there's any new things, and they talk about it. But definitely, I watch CDC. I receive a newsletter from CDC through the email. So this is the main source for us. Yeah.
That's amazing, though, that you're turning into Good Morning America because they are having the CDC on, and that's like their main dissemination. So I've wondered, where should we go? And that's a good tip for. It's definitely a great plug for Good Morning America, but also it's a good tip that doctors themselves are getting the information from there. Are you worried about misinformation around COVID right now? Are you seeing? You mentioned some of the patients saying Moderna does this, Pfizer does this. Are you worried about that, or you think that's a minority of information?
Right now, we are good with Pfizer and Moderna. Like a couple of months had passed by, so we feel comfortable with the vaccine. We are okay with it. It's working. Side effect is common, like fever, body ache, is regular side effects. So we are okay with this. But with other vaccine like Johnson & Johnson, the new is different, and we are a little bit uncomfortable right now. But in general, we are okay. We don't have the same fear like before.
Okay.
This is very true, yeah.
And you mentioned it would be great if doctors themselves could have been able to administer it. Are you waiting for that, or you think the moment has passed?
The problem is with Pfizer vaccine, you need a special refrigerator. This is one thing. So we cannot get it through the office, right? But the Moderna, we can get it. But the problem is when you have to have vaccines in your office, you're supposed to be compliant with certain criteria and requirements from the Department of Health, which some doctors, they don't have it. In my office, I do have it. I'm ready for it like almost for 2 months. And we've been trying to get the vaccine. The bad luck I had, the day I get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, the day they stopped giving the vaccine. That was my problem. Like 2 weeks ago, after waiting and waiting. And the reason why I like to have it in the office for one reason, because you visit the doctor once a while. The day you visit the doctor, I ask you want the vaccine? He say yes. So you just give it to them. So this is very, very helpful for patients. Sometimes people is busy. They don't want to take an appointment to go somewhere else. So it's very accessible with the doctor office. So I don't know why the Department of Health, why the New York City, they are not emphasizing and they're not making it really very common in medical office. Even though you look to the pharmacists, most of the pharmacists, they do have it.
That's such a good point in terms of just, when are you interacting with the healthcare system anyway? Can we, it's another, it's kind of another plug. I was going to ask you if you could tell Mayor de Blasio, Governor Cuomo, or President Biden anything in regard to the vaccine, what would it be?
This is to make it easy for medical providers to have it and to help the providers be like in the front line, really, when it comes to especially primary care doctors, because we are the one who promote the preventive medicine. Mm-hmm. And we are the one who usually people trust us. If I am the family doctor for entire family, all the question comes to me the first time. So whether like, oh, my husband has this, oh, my wife has this, my son, my daughter. So that question always goes to the primary care doctor. Right. So if they don't, they should have the primary care doctor, definitely. And pay them more instead of keep paying them less.
Yeah. No, I think those are really good points, and I'm so glad we were able to have your expertise on, and we've loved being able to help your patients a fraction of how much you help them every day, it seems. Is there anything else, Dr. Farhat, that comes to mind around this issue? I just want to make sure I give you kind of an open platform. Is there anything else you'd like to add or say right now?
No, I encourage everyone to have the vaccine, because if you protect yourself, you also, like you're vaccinating yourself, you protect the others, the people who you love. Nobody is safe until everybody is safe. And we shouldn't like choose between Moderna or Pfizer. Both vaccines are good. Whatever is available, just take the vaccine, and we shouldn't really hesitating a lot. And, that's the only thing really I recommend all the patients and everybody who's listening to us. And if they have questions, just to approach their primary care doctor and ask any question they have.
That's great. Okay. Well, thank you for your time. we've actually kept you overtime, so I'm really grateful that you were able to spend some time with us today. And we'd love to have you back on, because I think that the questions will continue for weeks, maybe months to come. And as we're pivoting to outreach and spreading information, we're happy to have you in our community.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Farhat.
For you. Bye-bye.
So I think that brings us to a wrap tonight. Oh, there's our volunteers again. Vivian, Diana, thank you. Isn't she great? She
so
was
wonderful.
Good. Yeah. I love how it's been such an honor for Epicenter to hear from like just kind of family care doctors, like saying, what can we do to help? We're going to send some patients your way, but let us know if we can help any of yours too. It's been really wonderful. I think there's some more links to put up, some more information. I'm not going to rattle these off. We're going to try to put some of these links in the comments or chats of however you're watching this. But you should know that we have pretty extensive guides to booking vaccines. We have guides to documentation, where and what do you need to show in order to prove you are who you are. We have information on our website. We have the intake form itself if you do need help booking a vaccine. And then, of course, we have the state sites and the city sites up there as well. Vivian, Diana, anything else that, one other thought is just if someone wants to take a screenshot of this and pin it to, keep it on your phone, maybe keep it on your desktop. But if you're out and about, one thing I find that's great is when I talk to, like a restaurant worker or somewhere where I'm out and I say, do you have your vaccine? We're just at a point where it's kind of getting easier to book them on the spot. And Vivian, Diana, have you guys been doing that too? Oh, you're muted, I think. Maybe it's headphones issues. We can't hear you, but that's okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. We got you.
I'm 0 for 2. I try to gently ease into that conversation, but if I'm, if it's someone I feel comfortable with, just broaching the topic, I have, and I will continue to. And yes, send anyone our way. I know the Epicenter links are flashing at the bottom too.
That's a good note. Our website has lots of this information, if not all of it, epicenter-nyc.com. Vivian, any final thoughts on approaching people and any other trends you're seeing?
Yeah, I haven't stopped talking about the vaccine ever since it started rolling out. So I think in conversations with your friends, your family members, don't just ask them if they've been vaccinated, ask if their family and their friends have been vaccinated, and if they haven't, send people our way. And I think right now it's just emphasizing how important community is and making sure we're all interconnected.
So on that note, I do want to thank the community also behind the scenes. Stefan Kaplan and Janelle Zagala have been working behind the scenes, Chloe Tai as well, Nathan Mukul, also from the Epicenter team, and Elena Tate, who made so much of the live stream tonight possible. And then, of course, I say like dozens, but really we're in the hundreds on Epicenter volunteers, because if you put up a flyer once, you're an Epicenter volunteer. And so I hope that's a good note for those of you who are watching. You can put up the flyers. They are on our website, and call yourself also a volunteer. You did your part to get New York City vaccinated. Thank you so much for joining us. And we hope this has been helpful, and we do hope to hear from you and see you soon. Stay healthy. Thanks.